fired up.
4th down and goal from the 9. 17 seconds to go. The play clock at 3. Shotgun snap. Carr throws into traffic. Intercepted. Jermaine Pratt has the football.
Yeah.
Coffin nails.
Bam, bam, bam. How about that? It ends on a turnover.
Joe Burrow takes the snap. He takes a knee. And after 31 years, the drought is over. It is no fluke. It is a fact. The Cincinnati Bengals are headed to Super Bowl 56.
Welcome back. It is another episode of Pardon the Punctuation. I am your host, as always, Aaron Smith, joined this week by Jeff Howell. Ed is not with us tonight as he is in Florida, probably wearing some way too overpriced Mickey Mouse ears and t-shirts from the happiest place on earth, where apparently no one dies because you can't report a death at Disney World. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. You have to be off the premises of Disney World before you can actually declare someone dead.
Of course, because no one can die there.
That's absolutely wild. But we are joined by Dave Simone of Bearcat Journal. First time on the show. And we're going to be talking a little bit of Bengals. But first and foremost, I want to get to the biggest topic of the week. Did Will Smith and Chris Rock stage that, or was it 100% real?
I don't know.
I think it was real.
I think it was real.
At first, I thought it was very staged, and now I'm not as sure. Either way, it was really weird.
It's very strange. Not good for anyone in that situation. I know they say that all publicity is good publicity, but I don't see how. I mean, Chris Rock basically just kind of looked like a little bitch.
They said that the viewership went from like 5 million to like 15 million.
It went up 58% or 56% from last year, where they were at about 9.7, I think. But
I mean, from like when it happened, like nobody was watching like this year. No one
it's the
was
Golden
watching.
Globes. Who cares?
No, it's the Oscars.
It was the
like
Oscars.
the biggest. I didn't even know it was
Whatever.
a thing until about 8 o'clock that night.
That's how much everybody knew about it. Aaron thought it was the Golden Globes.
Yeah, Aaron thought it was the Golden Globes.
Just
but
don't
that shows
care
you how much people were paying attention. But no, there's been some. I'm not gonna read them verbatim, but if you're familiar with the comedian Tom Segura,
man,
he had some tweets. Those were funny.
He did.
Oh, he's that dude's hilarious.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
Coach 30, the guy that like breaks down all the funny plays during like whenever teams get embarrassed on the football field. He broke it down, did a pretty good job.
Well, Dave, we did want to bring you on to talk about the Bengals offseason. I know how much we've talked about doing this for weeks and weeks. With Ed out, it kind of helped to have somebody come in. So we
I could help.
Yeah, we finally want to get your thoughts, as I know you've been, dying enough to talk about them, so much in fact that you've been just dropping little tidbits here and there while you've been doing the BCJ pod. So
they're fun to talk about now.
Here's your time to shine. But the Bengals have certainly made some moves, started in the offseason with the franchise tag of Jesse Bates. What were your thoughts when they franchise tagged Jesse Bates? Are they going to get a deal done in this offseason? What are your thoughts here?
I was not surprised that they were not able to get a deal done. It just kind of felt like it was heading that way for a while. I'm not sure why. They consistently say that they value Jesse and want him to be a part of the team long term. Jesse consistently says that he wants to be here, but for whatever reason, some have speculated that it's kind of a contract structure thing where they typically, or actually not even typically, never put more guaranteed money in a contract outside of the first year.
Right.
And as good as Jesse is, he's not going to be the one to break them of doing that. Joe Burrow will. But Jesse won't be. And if his agent is hell-bent on getting more guarantees, outside of that first year, then maybe that is why they haven't been able to reach a deal. But it is kind of an interesting thing with the Bengals in that, while, yes, they don't guarantee dollars after the first season, you almost never see players not fulfill their contract. So essentially their contract is guaranteed. Like Jesse Bates is a really good player unless he has some sort of catastrophic injury at 25 years old. He's going to see that entire deal.
Well, and I think the worst example of that was when they gave Robert Gathers his entire deal.
I mean, they've given it to almost basically every marquee player that they've ever signed recently has, seen through the vast majority, if not all, of their contract. So, can it still get done? I think so, because, you didn't see any safeties that came in this free agent class get anything near Justin Simmons, Jamal Adams type figures. So maybe that does allow them to get something done. But, I'm from what's happened so far, none of it really surprised me all that much.
Now, he shares an agent with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Who just rinsed the Browns.
Yeah, he got all the guarantees.
And the NFL.
I mean, absolutely rinsed them. So
it's kind of one of those things where, some people are saying, is that going to reshape how contracts are done? And it might, but like the Christian Kirk contract for Jacksonville isn't all of a sudden going to reshape how wide receiver deals are done. Teams are still going to go, yeah, that deal was not good, but that's on them. Like, everybody isn't going to start giving number 3 wide receivers, $18-20 million a year.
Well, even Juju's deal was not good. If you're looking at it as a player,
heavy incentives for him.
Yeah, I think they reported it at almost $10 million.
Yeah, it's really like a $3 million deal,
right? Like, it's lots.
Does he have any TikTok incentives?
Well, I mean, now that you have him and Jackson Mahomes together in the same city,
all the
holy
TikToks.
shit! Watch
Good
out.
God!
Like the memes about how Tyreek Hill saw them do one TikTok in the locker room, and he was like, "I'm out.
I'm out of here." Yeah.
So, do you think
he decided to go from the best arm quarterback in the league to maybe the worst? So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So, do you think Jesse Bates deserves top 3, top 2, top 1 safety money?
I mean, I wouldn't pay him what Jamal Adams is making, because I don't think Jamal Adams should get paid what Jamal Adams is making. I mean, $18 million or whatever that is a year for a safety is high for me. I think he's definitely worthy of top 5 money. I mean, you're still young. You would probably only sign him to a 4 or 5 year deal. He could still possibly get another deal on top of that. Unlikely with the Bengals. They don't, as we've seen lately, and I agree with, they don't love doing that third contract. But like something in the 15 million range, I think is doable, is fair. But I mean, I'm just obviously wildly speculating. I don't know what they've offered or what he's asked for. So, that's the funny part from a fan perspective. Oh, just pay him. Well, what is he asking for?
Right. And how much of it is, they didn't want to necessarily sink a bunch of money there before they, we're kind of on the other side. Aaron and I actually talked about this earlier, but we're kind of on the other side of like the big splash free agency deals that go right at the beginning. And we're kind of in the draft mode now.
Oh, yeah.
And you kind of, as far as the Bengals, like they certainly had some needs that were required to be filled. And who knows really what that money was what they needed there money wise to fill those needs. Obviously, we're kind of past that. So maybe they're back at the table with Jesse until they have to like July or something.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
July 15th. He's playing for basically $12 million if he signs the tag. $12 million cap hit. So they were able to sign him to an extension. It would lower that number, but they always do a decent amount of rollover dollars, and that's not an issue. I mean, they've spent cash to cap up there with, in the top group for the last several years. So I'm just not sure, I guess at this point, even with several months to go, I would be surprised if they got a deal done, because I guess it would be a change on his end, because we know how they operate. Like, they have a value on a player, whether we agree with it or not, and they don't come off that number. So if a deal gets done, I would think it would be because he has decided that this is in my best interest to not play on this kind of 1 year, who knows what might happen situation. They're not all of a sudden going to go, okay, we were offering you this, now we'll come and meet you where you want us to be.
I just think it'll be interesting to see what happens next year, as I believe next year is when the new TV contract comes up. And we already, I think, have a pretty good idea as to what that's going to mean for most of the teams and what they have available to offer.
Yeah, I mean, the cap is going to jump quite a bit, but I mean, they have
got a lot of guys they're going to have to re-sign.
Well, they've got three that we know for certain they're going to want to get something done with, and one of them is going to probably make $500 million. So
it's insane.
So it'll be interesting to see how that all gets structured. But that's well down the line. But
so the Bengals did make some moves, though, as Jeff was alluding to. They had some needs to shore up the offensive line, and shore up the offensive line they did, as they brought in Lyle Collins, Ted Karras, Alex Kappa at your center guard tackle spot. So the right side of the line is covered comparatively to last year. They also bring in Hayden Hurst at tight end. Who was your favorite move that they did in free agency as far as bringing in?
Probably Collins. I mean, just because, like, he's given what we watched, after Riley Reif got hurt. That was, Isaiah Prince is not that dude. And Collins is. I mean, Collins is one of the best right tackles in the league when he plays. So there was obviously some risk involved, and they played the situation perfectly. I mean, you have to give them credit. There was, outcries to, just trade for him. Just make it happen so you don't lose out on him. And then when no one traded for him and he got released, it turned into, well, just pay him. Just do it, do whatever you got to do to get him. And they end up getting him for basically the same thing he was on in Dallas, of roughly $10 million a year. A lot of that tied into game game active bonuses and stuff.
Are you on the field, right?
Right, which, I mean, for the last 2 years, he has had a hip injury and he's been suspended. Mm-hmm. So you need to cover yourself. You can be excited about a guy, but if he was this like perfect player, he wouldn't be available, and he wouldn't have been released. Someone would have traded for him. So, but when good, and he seems to be excited to be back with Frank Pollock and all of that, he is arguably, a top 5 right tackle. And, you just take a position that was such a weakness and you don't even turn it into average, because we all know average offensive line, they, say we could have, would have, should have, but average offensive line, they probably win the Super Bowl.
You really only need 2 more seconds.
So to go from bad and skip average and go to good, at least at that position, is a huge deal. And when you add that to Alex Kappa, who is a dude, especially in the run game, like, they're going to run behind that right side a lot, and they're going to do a lot of damage doing that.
That's, I think, probably the biggest thing that most people aren't talking about as they see the line shored up for Joe Burrow is the fact that the line's also shored up for Joe Mixon.
For sure, because, I mean, the headliner is the 70 sacks and how many hits, and the Bengals fixed their offensive line from a pass blocking standpoint, which they definitely did. I mean, there's been plenty of people on social media or whatever that have put out, that can do all the graphics and stuff comparing the 5 linemen last year to the 5 linemen that they should have this year. And it's, there's no comparison. But from a run game standpoint, especially on that right side, huge improvement.
Agreed.
You also see a lot of people who, expected him to I don't know that expected is the right word, but maybe we're like hoping that they were going to put together this like all-star, like star-studded 90s on Madden across the board, like offensive line. And then they start looking at it and they put their numbers and graphics out and they're like, this is really nothing more than an average offensive line. And alluding to what you just said, that's just about all they need to do is go from bottom of the barrel offensive line rankings wise to really they get up to that, average to like, maybe close to number 10-ish ranking offensive. That's all they needed to do.
For sure. I mean, I think Ryan Tannehill was sacked the second most times at 48. So, I mean, even if you're at that number last year, what kind of difference does that make? And I think this group can be, you still have questions on the left side at left guard, potentially. But, I mean, I think this group can be right there as a bona fide middle of the road top 15 pass blocking line. And, say you cut the sacks in half, 35. Like that would be an insane improvement.
Joe would be so happy.
Well, I mean, it's just the cumulative effect of all of it is like, yes, the sack number gets talked about the most, but how many times were there pressures where he wasn't sacked and he spun out and had to throw the ball away, where one more set, like a half a second longer, and he's able to throw the ball? Or,
coverage sacks.
Yeah. So, I think, being able to identify the weakness, which that wasn't hard to do, but being aggressive and not just saying like, let's get one or two guys and we'll address the rest of it in the draft, or we'll address it with player development because we feel good about these guys. Like they did what, I would say we all as fans hoped they would do, was go out and get 3 grown men who have started a lot of games for good teams, who are, still in their 20s, can still get better, but what they are. There's no, for good or bad, they're not all pros, they're not world beaters, but you know what you're getting, and the consistency and the dependability, especially with Kappa and Karras, is worth as much as anything else, because last year you just had no idea from almost play to play what you were going to get out of some of the linemen.
I think it's going to be a much improved line, but we got to move on in conversation. I know your time's a little limited tonight, but
I'm good, man. We're good.
All right. Well, the Bengals also brought back BJ Hill, Clark Harris, both Mike Thomases, both Mike and Michael, Josh Tupou, Brandon Allen, Eli Apple, Trenton Irwin, and Stanley Morgan. So is there anybody that they didn't bring back that you wish they would have? Is there, who do you think is the guys they brought back? Who do you think is the biggest impact guy there? And is there anybody else that you feel like, from what we've done so far, is there anybody else that they should be targeting here still in free agency?
Biggest impact of the guys that were on the team last year that they brought back, to me, is definitely BJ Hill. He's going to move into that starting 3 technique role. And and played super well when he had his chances. We'll see what, more snaps doesn't necessarily mean more production, but again, young guy made an impact. We'll see what that does in another year in their system.
Did you see what he said when he got re-signed?
What, just about I wanted to come back here,
running around his house screaming "Hooday" for an hour, and just
I enjoy his little back and forth with Jermaine Pratt. That stuff's funny. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that's the other new thing that we aren't really used to is guys wanting to be here, whether it's an outside free agent or a guy saying someone could have offered him more money and he would have rather come back here. They really do have it going on from a player. The word culture gets thrown around a lot, and I think that it is overused at times. But you can really tell that it's not BS with these guys. They enjoy playing for Zach. They enjoy playing for these coaches. They enjoy the way that the system as a whole has been put together.
And you got a guy like Kappa, who is, is blocking for arguably the greatest quarterback to play the game, who decides he's coming back out of, and you can't tell me that he didn't make some phone calls there, before that. And he's like, yeah, I think I want to go up there and play in Cincinnati, where it's not Tampa, where it's not warm all the time. I want to go up there. I want to be a part of that. I want to head up there. And then you got, Joe's bringing all his free agent signings. He brings them all over and then brings Collins over. Let's be a part of this.
The tax implications were enormous for him.
Oh yeah. Coming out of Florida.
Yeah,
definitely.
Although I'm sure they probably pay this, do this same kind of stuff that what professional baseball players do, where they got to pay taxes in every state they play in and all that kind of nonsense.
For sure.
What a trade that ended up being, though, going back to BJ Hill. Just Billy Price for BJ Hill.
And a pick.
Right. Unreal.
I mean, it's a 7th rounder, but still, Billy Price was not in your plans at all.
No.
And you were able to get a quality player who gave you legit production, and then you re-sign to an extension, and then you get a draft pick on top of it. But I would from what you asked earlier, I would and they might still at some point, I would like them to re-sign Trey Flowers also.
Agreed.
I thought he was a unique piece, especially against the tight ends that we see as a bigger, I guess you'd call him a DB, linebacker-ish type player. He's not an outside guy, but I thought especially in the AFC Championship game, he did a good job matching up with Kelsey.
Yeah.
So
he shuts down tight ends, and I think
he's a guy that has a unique role, and I would like to see them, be able to find a way to bring him back.
I think it's crazy that he was misused so badly in Seattle, where he wasn't lined up on tight ends. So I think that that's a huge move. They're able to bring him back to be able to be on some of these bigger guys, especially in this division where you have David Njoku, where you have
Mark Andrews.
Yeah, Mark Andrews. I don't even know who Pittsburgh has. That's where I was struggling.
Pat Fryermuth.
Stop making up names, Dave.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm still kind of looking at him as a jag. I mean, I don't know that he's anything more than just a guy as far as that goes. But
yeah, I mean, they want you. We'll see what happens with Ben gone. I mean, they want him. I mean, he was a 2nd round pick last year. They want to feature him, but we'll see.
We'll see. So I'm curious to see if they end up doing anything with. I know that they've been tied to Stephon Gilmore. I know they've been tied to Honey Badger. I
don't know if that's any of that is real. Those moves do not if you hold those moves up to what they've done the last 3 years when they've finally gotten active in free agency, those would be such isolated moves, and maybe they do. Maybe they feel they're the market, and the guys haven't signed. I don't think Tyrann Mathieu in any hurry. I can't speak to Gilmore. But just like those type of veteran players who have been really good are still going to command significant dollars. And they just, and I believe rightly, they're just not paying guys third and fourth contracts and guys that are in their 30s. I think they just look at that as, not a waste of money, but too big of a risk to sign outside free agents at that stage in their career when they are going to command. Even if Stephon Gilmore takes a 1-year deal, it's going to be
like 7.
I can't imagine it's less than $10 million.
Right, like 7, 8, 9.
That would be. I mean, if that would to me would blow me away if he took something like under 10. Even on a 1-year deal. I
think that'd be a true testament that players just want to be here with Joe at that point.
At that point, sure, but like there must be. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you would think he'd have already been signed, but like I don't. It just seems so off the beaten path of what they've been doing recently.
It'd be a true evolution of the Cincinnati Bengals at that point, man.
Well, the true evolution and the move that would floor me the most is if they traded a draft pick for a player, because that's something they literally have never done. I mean, they hold draft capital as close to their chest as about anybody, and just giving away a draft pick for a player, not even like the Cordy Glenn thing where it was a pick swap. They didn't actually lose a draft pick when they traded for Cordy Glenn. That to me would signal like someone else is running the organization.
So last question on free agency before we move on to the draft. I promise.
No problem.
I guess, they had Quentin Spain, who's still a free agent. He's not signed anywhere yet. They had Riley Rife, who I believe is also still a free agent, hasn't signed anywhere yet. Do you think they bring any of these guys back just to have another guy in the locker room going into this, like going into the, like in the camp and all of that? Or do you think that they hold off on bringing in a veteran and see what they got with the draft before they make any of those moves?
I don't see Reef coming back. I mean, the Collins move kind of took care of that. Quentin Spain, I kind of look, I see it both ways. Like, he's an older player and definitely got worse as the season went on. At the same time, I'm still not comfortable even with the offensive line moves that they made. I would be more comfortable if they brought him back and just in a battle royale situation for left guard and not just said, we're going to let Jackson Carman, Deontay Smith, and maybe a draft pick battle it out. Like, I still feel like if Quentin Spain wins the job, okay. If Jackson Carman wins the job, okay. But like that, just having the veteran guy there, and who knows, with a better unit all the way around, does that help Jackson Carman? Does that help Deontay Smith? Personally, I did not like moving Jackson Carman to the right side. I was
going to say that moves him back to his.
I would have, but again, you need to do what you need to do. But I just felt like you take a guy that had been a left tackle his entire life and you move him to right guard with a dog shit right tackle next to him. Like, I don't know how much you would expect him to like perform at a high level. So you move him back to the left side. You got Jonah Williams next to him. You got Ted Karras next to him. Maybe that helps. But I still would like that. Even if it's Quentin Spain, who's on the tail end of his career, I still like that guy that's been there. And, if the worst case scenario, he wins the job, then you've got 5 vets on your offensive line. And And you're not giving up on Jackson Carman if that's the case, but you need to play your best guys.
I guess my biggest concern is just not knowing if there was an injury, what the hell we're going to do with this line.
Well, there's going to be there's going to be an injury.
Right. So I guess that's where I want somebody who can play a backup tackle or swing guard if need be. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that's, the wish, the dream, and maybe you find that in the draft. Maybe you still find that in that late after the draft free agency.
It seems like free agency this year, the whole second, third wave is super slow this year. There are a lot of, maybe not for the Bengals specifically, but there's still a lot of quality players available. And I think at this point, teams they've signed the guys they wanted to sign. Mm-hmm. And now they're focused on the draft.
Yep.
And those free agents are probably not going to take a deal right now, because any deal that you're taking at this point, if you're, a PFF top 100 or an NFL.com top 100 free agent, is probably not going to be to your liking. So you wait till after the draft to see who missed out on, a position or player that they needed. But it's to me, it's felt a little weird in that it still seems like a lot of guys that if they flash up on Twitter as signing, people will be like, oh, I didn't realize that guy hadn't signed yet. He's still a quality player.
And that gets us to the draft, where the Bengals are going to be picking this year at number 31.
I don't know if I can make it that long.
Because they're gonna trade all of their draft picks to move up to number 1 and take Matt Ariza.
I thought you were going to say Sauce Gardner. I'd be okay with that.
That would make a little more sense than trading all the way up to take a punter. But that's been taking a punter. God. Right, punt god has been hot topic.
I definitely can't do my draft drinking game. There's no way I could make it to the 31st pick. So.
So I'm sure you've been doing your mock drafts, if I know you the way I think I do. So what is your mock draft website of choice? Is it PFF?
I like the PFF mock draft simulator the most.
What are your pros and cons for the PFF mock simulator?
Oh, God, I don't even know if I have any. I haven't done a pro and con list.
Do you think they update as much as they should? Because I think that's been my biggest concern.
Well, right now, for some reason on my phone, I can hardly ever get through a full one where it actually completes. So I don't know if that's my phone thing or their thing, but I just think the way that it's set up, whatever you want to call it, the interface or the design of it is very simple.
Yes, very
clean. It's just very easy to use, and you can make it go real fast, and I just like it from the convenience standpoint, and I don't mess around with any of the settings like changing team need to a higher or lower level.
Right.
I just do it the way they have it set up. I mean, I'm not trying to game the system or anything, or make certain players and end up in certain spots, but I know there's other sites that that have them. I just always end up going to theirs.
So what are your odds right now on the Bengals trading up in this draft?
0%.
Same.
What about trading out of the 31st spot?
I think that
to go backwards.
I think that's definitely a possibility. I think obviously that'll have to do with who's on the board when they pick. From their standpoint, do we have a guy that we had rated 15th that is still there? If that's the case, then they shouldn't trade out. I mean, you're getting. I know. I believe this is kind of the league-wide thing, but there's 1A, 1B, 1C. They kind of break up the rounds when they grade players into 3 tiers. So if you're getting a high 1B, almost a 1A player at 31, you should take him. If all of those guys, if all your 1Bs are gone and someone wants to move up because for whatever reason, the quarterback is still there and they want to get that 5th year on option, then sure. The second round Bengals trade down is about as for sure thing is you can bank on lately with them in the draft. So they are obviously willing to trade down. It's just a matter of how far and what that cluster of players is at 31. How many of those guys are still going to be there wherever this trade down opportunity is?
So who have you been targeting at 31 as far as wish list for Dave Simone?
I think corner hits them well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people won't see it as a huge need, but I think edge hits them well. It's a very, very good edge class. And while we're excited about the 6 snaps that Joseph Osai played in Tampa, they don't have any other impact guys in the edge group right now. So, I think it's going to be, you have 8 picks. So I won't say heavy, but now that they've done what they've done with the offensive line, I wouldn't be surprised if outside of tight end that the first 3 or 4 picks aren't defense.
I agree.
Because they kind of need to flip what they've done the last couple of years where they've added vets in free agency on defense and attacked the offense with the draft with Burrow and Chase and Higgins. They need to flip that and start supplementing some younger guys in the defense, because some of these defensive guys, they're probably not going to re-sign because they get into that third contract, 30-year-old range that they haven't signed outside free agents. Now, maybe it'll be different because it's their own guy, but corner, obviously, I'm not a Eli Apple hater, but he should be your 4th corner. And if
he's not your future,
if Trey Waynes doesn't get hurt, he is your 4th corner.
Right.
But he should be your 4th corner, and he's a fine 4th corner. He's not your second guy. So corner, I said edge. They need a backup 3 technique. There's hardly any in this draft, so that will be interesting to see how they attack that. But those are kind of my corner and edge, unless something goofy happens, has kind of been where I have been looking the most.
With a Zion or
right. I mean, if a Zion Johnson or Tyler Linderbaum somehow makes it to 31, I think both of those guys would be incredibly hard to pass up.
Yeah.
The Linderbaum one is interesting just because he's very, very scheme specific and undersized. So is that what you want? Would you, if you did that, then you're moving Ted Karras to the guard position, which he actually is graded quite well at guard. But do you want a 6'2", under 300-pound, short-armed center that is super athletic and very physical and does not deserve any, if Bengal fans are looking at him the same way as Billy Price, I don't think that's fair. But, you're in a division that runs a lot of 3-man fronts and massive nose tackles. And do you want a 295-pound, Jason Kelsey move type center? So, I mean, he could very well be there. It'll, be interesting if he is, but.
Agreed. Well, Chad wants you to explain the draft drinking game in the comments. So.
Oh, okay. So, the draft drinking game. So usually you get a group of friends together and you draw numbers. Say there's 10 people playing, you draw numbers 1 through 10. Say I draw number 1, that means I get pick 1, I get pick 11, and so on. From the time the commissioner goes up on the stage to announce that it's so-and-so's pick, you drink 4 or 5 ounces of beer. You have to finish that by the time he comes up to give the pick. So I have the first pick. I say the Jaguars are going to draft Aiden Hutchinson. if they draft Aiden Hutchinson, I get to give out a shot to someone else playing the game. Now, usually this is not a shot of like straight whiskey, or you make something to make it more palatable, so you can get through the whole draft.
So you can make it past the first 5 picks.
Right. If I get it wrong, I have to take the shot myself.
Now, do you have like a bartender who's creating these?
No, you usually would make like a big picture of some, something that you would take at a college bar. Just
I was going to say like Washington apples, or like
something
buttery nipple,
lemon drop, something like that. But it gets interesting when you're at like pick 13 and 14, when basically no one is ever getting these right. And you're taking the shot and you're still having to drink your beer. So like sometimes the team takes the full time, but other times you only have a couple minutes to drink it. And then you're still, obviously casually drinking as you go on as well. But there's no way anybody is making it to pick 31.
Well, you'll know on Saturday morning who the Bengals picked.
So is this something that you only do for the first round?
Yeah.
Do you re-invite over for other rounds?
No.
And then people are just looking down to see who Mel Kiper has as his top guy available.
No way.
And they're
you're doing that. You're doing that anyway. From after the first, once the first pick goes totally off the rails, like when you get the first pick that no one expected, and then it makes everybody else, all the other teams kind of have to reset or whatever. It gets wild. Like the year when the Bengals drafted Burrow, obviously that was the first pick, and we were all excited. I just started drinking champagne from that point on, and I don't even remember like playing the game. It was obviously during COVID. We had a whole group doing it through Zoom. There was like 12 of us all playing through Zoom, and I'm just sitting there just drinking champagne right out of the bottle the whole time. Like,
well done.
That's awesome. You even continued it on Zoom.
Oh yeah, but I do want to mention Jeffrey's point in the comments about safety. That is a sneaky one, because I think that might tell you a lot about what the Jesse Bates situation is, because there are some single high safeties. Lewis Seen from Georgia, Dax Hill from Michigan. If they take one of those guys at 31, you can basically, figure out what's going on with Jesse Bates.
Do you think they keep Jesse through the season though on that franchise tag, or do they try and trade him thereafter?
Good question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, is he more inclined to sign the deal?
Well, I guess it also kind of depends on which safety spot it is, right? Because you also have Bell coming up.
Yeah, Von Bell's going in the last year of his deal. These guys would be more of the Jesse Bates type. Okay. Later on, you're Brian Cook, Nick Cross from Maryland, Kirby Joseph from Illinois. I think those guys are more in the Von Bell category.
So you gave us what you thought about the Bengals, and real quick before we get you out of here, because I know we kept you a little later than we thought we would. Rapid fire. Tell me what round you think they're going in. Although I think I have a pretty good idea.
All right.
Just from being with you over on the BCJ pod, but we'll get it for our viewers here as well. So Desmond Ridder.
1.
First round. Okay.
I'm starting to feel better about Des in 1.
As far as that goes, the Austin Gale. PFF guy.
Yep.
He's got him as his only tier 1 quarterback available in the draft.
I saw that.
Love it. It doesn't hurt that he also worked for Bearcat Journal. So
well,
no.
Hey,
no big deal. I don't even have to ask Sauce. We all know he's. But do you think he's top?
Here's my one on Sauce though. If he gets past the Giants at 7, I will be surprised.
I was going to say, do you think he's top 5 or top 10?
If he gets past the Giants at 7, I'll be surprised.
Okay. Jerome Ford.
That running backs are so hard.
That's what she said.
I'll say 5th.
Okay. Alec Pierce.
3.
Darian Beavers.
2.
Who am I missing here, Jeff? Oh, Kobe Bryant.
Kobe, he's a tough one for me. I'll go 4.
Okay.
Did you do Brian Cook?
I didn't do Brian Cook.
Cook, I'll say 3.
That's 7.
Majay,
yes.
4.
And do you think our boy Curtis Brooks gets drafted?
No, unfortunately, I don't.
So of those 8 or 9, if you want to include Curtis Brooks, do any end up in stripes?
That's such a hard one too. I'll say no, just because you have 8 picks. It's got to obviously match up, but I would like to see Brian Cook. if I could obviously taking Sauce out of the equation, if they could pick a player from UC that fits what they want, what their need might be, and where it might match up in the draft, Cook would be that guy for me.
I wouldn't be surprised if you saw guys coming in even on a short workout like a Brooks, like a DeBlanco, with the Bengals.
Oh yeah, I mean those guys will be undrafted free agents, which is almost better than getting drafted in the 7th round
because you're not slotted with a certain dollar amount.
You have more teams fighting for you,
right?
And you can pick whether you want to go somewhere because they're giving you a big signing bonus, or you go somewhere because they don't have very many bodies at your position. Where if you get drafted, you're just you're beholden to that team.
All right. Well, anything else you want to say about the off season here for the Bengals as we have you here, or are we just getting you out of here?
I'm good, man.
Cool. Well, we do appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on.
Hold on. I do want to address the punter situation. Do you think like everybody there, because it has been like I think Jake Liskow has probably like muted any mentioning of Ariza on Twitter, like, and it doesn't have to be him. But do you think that the Bengals target either a punter through the draft or try to pick one up, undrafted to bring him in?
I do not think they'll draft one. I'm a huge punt god fan too. I mean, how can you not want him and Evan McPherson on the same team? But, and it sounds silly to say this, but like, he doesn't hold because he also kicked at San Diego State. So I don't know who their holder would be if they drafted him and he won the job over Drew Chrisman, who I assume can hold.
Yeah.
And that's,
Can Brandon Allen hold?
No idea.
Well, Pat McAfee lied about being able to hold when he got drafted. That's probably one of the best stories ever. It's on his podcast, on one of his episodes of the podcast. He lied about it, and then some guy that beat him out at Penn State, whenever he was getting recruited by Penn State, he got beat out for the recruiting spot for the scholarship by a left-footed kicker, who he then had to hold for when he came into like a camp for the Colts. And he was like, not only could I not hold very well for a normal right-footed kicker, I certainly couldn't hold for a left-footed kicker. And this guy that beat me out for a scholarship, I'm holding for him, and he missed like 7 of 10 kicks and never saw him again.
Yeah, I just I think that gets. I mean, we don't look at it that way from a fan perspective, but coaches obviously do. So I don't think. I mean, they might bring someone else in if they don't end up re-signing Kevin Huber and having a competition between him and Chrisman. Like, I could see Huber retiring. I mean, he's had a unbelievable career and going out with a Super Bowl appearance. So, but I mean, if he does retire, then they're definitely going to bring somebody else in. I don't imagine they just hand the job
straight to Drew Chrisman.
My favorite Kevin Huber story that I have is seeing him at a UC basketball game in the upper bowl. I looked at him. I said, Kevin Huber? He turns around. He said, yeah. I said, what the hell are you doing up here? And he just walked away.
He's a man of the people.
He just walked away from me.
He's probably like, this guy is the only guy that recognized me.
I think. I totally think I was, but that's
goes up there so he can be nondescript. And
I guess.
Aaron had been drinking at the game the whole time.
No,
before the game.
He thought to himself,
game.
He thought to himself, this is how I landed my job with BCJ. Maybe Kevin Huber's got a company that he'll hire me on with.
That's right.
Oh, man. Well, we do thank you very much for your time, Dave. You were more than generous as we kept you a little later than maybe you wanted to be. I know you like to go to bed early, get that beauty rest, but...
Oh, yeah. So I need all of that I can get, obviously.
Well, we'll have to have you back on after the draft, and you can break down the picks as you see them fit, and we'll go from there, man.
Sounds good, guys. I appreciate it.
Cool.
All
Thanks.
right.
Thank you.
That was fun. Little crossover from BCJ.
We can hold his feet to the fire after the draft to see how accurate he was. And
we'll have to go back down and write them down. I didn't keep track. I mean,
I didn't either, and I thought about it, but then I was like, yeah, it's a video. We just go back and watch him later, see how well he did. And if he missed on him, he has to have whatever drink in front of him, and he has to take shots. And since he's not here to defend himself and say no, I just locked him into that. Sorry,
them's
Dave.
the rules.
The rules.
We'll have to have Ed as homework, since he wasn't here to join us. Go back and clip that. It should be somewhere between the 45 and 50-minute mark. So that should tell us where those rapid fire were. So yeah, that's your homework, Ed. I know you're here with us, as apparently your entire family is. Good Lord.
Because somebody's over here talking about big news in Cincinnati. There wasn't. There was a small blip of news from Norwood tonight. So
we don't cover Norwood.
If you know a Norwood sports show, I'm sure they'll cover it.
Right. This is a Cincinnati sports show, not Norwood. Get out of here.
And Andy Dalton did sign with the Saints, which is, I mean, I like Andy Dalton, and I wish him well wherever he goes. Like, he is what it is.
Sure. He's got a shot to be a starter again, which that's all he wants.
He took us to the playoffs several times, so
that's all the guy wants, is just a shot at being a starter again. And right now, he's got a shot at being a starter again. Good for him.
Ed's chilling with Mickey Mouse. Yeah,
we made that joke earlier, Bill. But
I should have got the picture that Ed posted of him with the alligator, where he looked absolutely frightened,
terrified.
But I don't have it. That's a fail on my part. My bad.
Yep. So, anything else you want to add on the Bengals stuff? I think we covered it pretty well, but I don't know if you had any additional comments as far as. I mean, I would love to see them bring in a Honey Badger or a Stephon Gilmore. I don't think that the Bengals, as much as we talked about, this is going to be the year that we see all these guys come just to be around Joe Burrow. I don't think the sustainability of this team is quite there yet, where we're going to see guys coming at a discount. We're going to see guys coming just to be here. And do it a couple of years, especially with the AFC where it's at right now. Jesus,
good Lord. But I think you see it in like a couple spots, right? Like you see it in some of these free agent signings with Collins. Like I'm your bodyguards here. Well, and then you got
so is
Kappa.
Every other LSU Tiger, by the way.
Right? You got Kappa, who's like, I could play another year here, and of course now there's all these rumors that like Tom Brady's going to go demand a trade to the Dolphins or whatever. It's like it doesn't make sense in my head, but who knows? Like him coming back didn't really make sense either. You figure he would have just
unfinished business, guy.
Right, unfinished business. I need my 87th Super Bowl ring. Like get out of here. So yeah, I don't know. You see it in those kind of like the players who were like directly connected to Joe, right? Like maybe you'd see it if they needed a wide receiver, which obviously they don't, because they had the ability to let Auden Tate leave and go down to Atlanta.
Which, by the way, is he now Atlanta's best receiver?
WR1 probably,
which is crazy.
Yeah, and Bill mentioned over here Hayden Hurst. That's a sneaky good signing. To be fair, I had no idea who he was until we signed him, and then I went and looked, and I like it.
I knew who he was only because when Baltimore drafted him, he was like 27 years old because he went in the baseball draft prior to.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
That's why he was so old entering the draft. So he's for only being his, I believe, 5th season. He's
he went
old.
from. I did see like when he was in Baltimore. Yeah,
26, 27 when he was first came into the league.
He lined up at they ran him at fullback a few times. Like he was, and that's something like you think about it. Like I can't even remember like a time when the Bengals lined up with like a fullback that wasn't like Pecco. Right. Like I think we touched on that last week.
Lorenzo Neal, way back in the day.
Way back. So like, you've got him, and I do think it's a sneaky good signing. Like I think it
at $4 million.
Well, I think he fills in the Uzomah hole on the field.
I think you'd be crazy if you think that the Bengals at some point around maybe that 4th, 5th round aren't going to take a tight end.
Yeah. And maybe they will. Like, I mean, it's maybe not a bad idea. But I think Hurst fills the Uzomah spot on the field. Sure. You're not going to fill that locker room guy through free agency. I'm sure somebody else in the locker room will probably step up as the hype man. There are plenty of guys that can do that.
There's lots of personalities in that room.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at. Is there a lot of personalities there that they can use for that? So excited to see what the draft brings us.
Yes.
Maybe we'll probably likely have a pre-draft show maybe the week before, so depending on how we can line things up. But kind of in the theme of last year, how we did. And if you're interested, you go back and watch those because we were pretty spot on last year.
Should be fun. It should be fun. So moving on, switching gears, a little bit of Reds talk.
Oh, God.
So it's been a wild ride here through these first couple of weeks. I mean, we had Clay on and we talked about all of the moves that the Reds made. Whether you agree with them, whether you disagree with them, they essentially shipped everybody out. Yeah. Everybody who was worth a damn anyway, that you could actually trade without having to go and talk to the player about no trade clauses and what have you.
And they didn't bring back certain guys.
They did not, who, as you bring up Nick Castellanos, you saw as soon as his very first at bat after the Will Smith, Chris Rock incident.
He had a home run. That was the next day. His first hit as a Philly came as the announcers were talking about some guy that had to apologize.
A coach on the team
for a DUI arrest. So I think he's a Toronto coach, but he was in the stadium. So
it was the Toronto broadcast that was.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, on brand, very much on brand. And I think I saw his brother tweeted out that he's like 4 for 6 so far in spring training and multiple, extra base hits. And that home run he hit after the the next day or whatever, after the debacle at the Golden Globes, as Aaron
whatever
that was a monster bomb. So yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to have him back. It just doesn't seem, and we've talked about it. They don't communicate a clear plan or path, and it doesn't seem like they know. They want to say a lot of words that sound like a plan, that when you look at it, none of it makes sense.
And we saw a little bit of sneaking behind the curtain, I guess, as I think you mentioned it last week. I don't think we actually had the full readout of the actual interview between.
Well, this one happened after.
Oh, this is round 2.
And no, I did mention it, but it was in our group chat. It was a couple days after last week that happened. So,
but Tommy Thrall interviewed Bob Castellini.
Is that really peeking behind the curtain, though? You got a guy.
That's the best you can get. I mean, how are you going to get any further behind the curtain than the owner? Granted, the owner's probably giving you a bunch of bullshit. We both know that.
I mean, Okay, but like it's like he was probably handed all these questions. He probably wrote them and was like, "Here, Tommy."
His publicist wrote him.
Right, like, "Tommy, ask me these questions, or else I'm gonna fire you." Like we already know he's a bully of an owner to people who don't, talk to him or talk about him or the team the way that he envisions it.
Well, you have to delve into. For those who don't know that story, what do you mean by that?
I forget who the writer was, but it was a writer for the Reds when they were through Fox Sports, when they were on, all the Fox Sports stuff, that was writing, very
observations.
Just an article that put into words on paper what everyone that was a fan of the team, and even some people who aren't fans that are looking at it from the outside, thought. Which is that, the Reds really don't have a plan. They're not building a winning team. All of the things we've been saying. And Bob Castellini went to Fox, was like, "Get rid of this guy. We can't have that."
Crazy.
Like, get rid of that guy.
But this goes back into what I was talking about last week, as David Sampson talks about often, is that there are plenty of meddling owners. And you got to be kidding me if you don't think that this guy is a meddling owner.
It was Hal McCoy. How did that slip out of my head? Sorry. It was Hal McCoy. How are you going to threaten Hal McCoy?
I don't know. That was before he was with MLB, like the MLB network.
Yeah, he was with Fox.
Right. Which led to his dismissal from Fox and ended up
Fox just ended up getting rid of all of them.
Beat writers and all that, yeah. So he had this interview with Tommy Thrall, which Tommy Thrall, if you don't know who he is, he has been with the Reds organization now for what, three seasons?
Yeah.
I think he took over for Marty.
He was like tag teaming with Marty during that, like doing like road games or whatever
during the goodbye tour.
Yeah, during the goodbye tour. I mean, heck, now you got to wonder, like, did like Marty definitely left because Bob sucks. Like,
I don't know. Marty's kind of a curmudgeon, man.
Okay, he is, but like he's one of those guys. Like he tells it like it is, whether it's
because he's get off my lawn guy.
Right, and that's fine. You can be get off my lawn guy. I grew up with get off my lawn guy and the old lefty for my whole life. So, I liked him, but I'm sure he left, and now I realize it because Bob sucks.
So Tommy Thrall has this interview with Bob Castellini, and I know you can find it on MLB.com. I know you read it. I read it. What were your takeaways after reading this interview?
To me, and we've talked about this before too, that Nick Krall sucks at PR. Yes. And now it just seems
clearly Castellini doesn't share the same PR guy as Nick Krall, right?
Well, I mean, as much as like you look at this and you're like, oh man, this is like a really good PR spin on it. And no, it's not, because the things that he's saying are, we're trying to win. Like we want to build a winning franchise here. You've said that since you bought the team, that you were going to bring championships here, and it hasn't happened. Division titles, okay. We haven't won a playoff series.
What I didn't like is basically he's talking about competition, yet at the All-Star break, or I'm sorry, at the end of the trade deadline, he did make some moves last year. Granted. Yeah. They were about a month too late to make a difference.
Yeah. And now
stuff we were talking about in real time, like we have a drastic need for bullpen help.
Yeah. And
get anybody.
If you go back and look at our shows from July,
why would you?
I mean, I don't expect anybody to. I'm just referencing. If you go back to those shows at the end of June, into the All-Star break, July, and we're talking about this and then they finally make these moves and they get Sessa and Wilson for next to nothing, and then Michael Givens from Colorado for next to nothing, and it was right up to the border of the trade deadline.
Well, which we both know why they do that.
Right.
It's because the cost is significantly less at that point in time as opposed to a month prior.
Right. And it would have been so maybe it cost you a little bit more
earlier,
to win,
to get into the playoffs.
And he talks about in this interview, like I'm not going to read it verbatim here, but he talks about how like now, with the new playoff landscape, like, so what he's saying is he doesn't want to build a championship team. No. He wants to build a mediocre team that can sneak into the playoffs under the new playoff system, win maybe get hot and win a wild card series, and then be like, look at this. Maybe one year they get hot and they run through the playoffs and pull a St. Peter's and get all the way, to the NLCS or something like.
In his head, he wants to be Oakland. He wants to be Tampa. He wants to be a team that is spending nothing and putting playoff caliber teams out there by spending nothing. And it's a shitty way to lead a franchise. You don't have a track record of doing it. I don't think what you're doing right now is doing it. And this bullshit, as I've continued to beat the drum on, I've not backed down on this, is he talks about us being our market size of 29th.
Yeah, that he's paying up to 19th. Like we're ranked 19th. He says that they're ranked 19th in payroll, but they rank market size at 29th. So I think
he made up that number of market size 29th because if you look at how big the market of the Cincinnati Reds is, it goes into Indiana, it goes into Kentucky, it goes into Tennessee, it goes into West Virginia, it goes all the way up to Columbus. We have a large market size. It's the fact that you don't put out a winning product that no one is coming. I don't understand. Like 700 has one of the biggest broadcast ranges of any radio station in the country. People have talked about being in Texas on a clear day and getting 700. Truckers talk about that all the time.
And then he brings up what Aaron loves to talk about, which was from the COVID year into 2021, crying poor. And saying, after all of these, the substantial financial losses that we felt after putting a playoff contending team on the field, we only reduced payroll by 10%.
If you lost so much money, sell the team.
Right. And that's my thing is like, he talks about all.
Because he didn't lose money. He's still finished in the green.
And you know what? If you didn't open your books up, show everybody, this is what we had. Like, we lost all of it. It's all bad. Like, the players are eating, grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup in the locker room because that's all we can give them. And,
man,
he talks about being good stewards of this franchise, and they simply aren't. He talks about having all these guys in the ownership group only consists of people with strong ties to the city of Cincinnati. My partners and I are proud stewards of this franchise.
Are you
continue to return? And then here you go. This is the other line I don't like. We will continue to return all the financial support we receive from our fans, business partners, and MLB back into the Reds.
Yeah, okay. Here's the thing, Bob. Walk outside the stadium, just on the street. You might get hit with a tomato. People hate you.
It is not going to happen. But if opening day was a dud this year on April 12th,
it's not in Cincinnati.
No. I mean, our when they do opening day here, which is April 12th, 5 days after they open in Atlanta on opening night, they did get moved to ESPN2 into like.
For what?
At 8 p.m. against the Braves. And you know what? Here's the thing. This is what sucks. Is like, I would love for this group of players that are wearing Reds across their chest to totally, step on my throat here and win a bunch of games and make the playoffs. And be a great team. And if they do that, it is not because Bob Castellini and Nick Kroll are doing everything they can to put a winning team together. It's simply because the players that are on the team, overachieve.
It's maddening, is what.
And then Jeff Inman over here in the chat says he hopes Miley no hits us, and I said after he went and signed with the Cubs that he was going to no hit us in the Field of Dreams game. So
I hope they take us out of the Field of Dreams game and put another team.
I was going to say we talked about that too.
Put another team that's more deserving, because Bob doesn't deserve that money.
And then there was another article that was written today, and it was on, I believe, on Cincinnati.com. Let me see if it was on Local 12. It was on Local 12. Richard Skinner. Castellini's PR spin is as discombobulated as his tenure as Reds owner. And he essentially, goes through and breaks down the interview as well, with his own thoughts, and he's hitting a lot of the same things that we mentioned today in his article. But it's another one to look at and realize that we're probably not going to see this sustained success, this like weird plan,
and if you
that they don't even really know. I mean, you got your manager.
Say the Reds come out of nowhere, right? Say they win 85 games, come out of nowhere to win 85 games. It's going to be because you have guys trying to make their first contract. And they're going to win despite the ownership not putting the proper pieces around them.
I mean, last year that kind of happened.
Yeah.
Right? Like they overachieved. Like you had this team that was like
the Island of Misfit Toys.
And all they needed were a couple pieces out in the pen. And then that didn't happen, and then you end up with, like, what was it? Winker was hurt for, a little bit, and it's just it's. I don't know how he can. I mean, I know how he can sleep at night because he looks at his bank account, and sees how healthy it is. But to say that they're proud stewards of this franchise, and then to say like, oh, but we're this is almost the smallest market in the MLB.
They put the second smallest market? Are you kidding me?
But we're spending above it.
No. Get out of here.
You're
a liar. You made up your own statistics.
Your own numbers. And as much as I would enjoy sitting here and continuing to bash on Bob like we have for the last 3 weeks. Yeah, that's true. They did get their player to be named later from the Jesse Winker Suarez trade, and that was a pitcher from Mariners, Connor Phillips. He's kind of a high risk, high reward guy. I think straight from their scouting of him, he kind of looks like he might be able to be a reliever eventually when he makes it. Makes the big leagues. He's got like a mid-90s fastball, pretty decent movement on his curveball. Apparently, he's got some command issues. He had like almost a 14% walk rate. We'll see. I mean, maybe he turns into something good. He slots in. I think, from what I was looking, I think he's going to slot in probably about 14th on the prospect list of the Reds. So could be decent. I just thought when they were hyping it up, and it's another pitcher, seemed kind of. I guess having too much pitching isn't a bad thing. So maybe he ends up panning out and is really good. But I feel like they took a lot of, the kid that they got in the Sonny Gray trade. He was another young guy, like 18 years old, with potential high ceiling, but we all know that baseball draft picks with high ceilings still kind of a crapshoot. It's not the same thing as the NFL draft, so very rarely do you get a guy that is able to come in and impact your team right away.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the guy that is the player to be named later, I think he ends up. What was his name again? I'm sorry.
Connor Phillips.
Thank you. Looking at the rankings that he's a high risk, high reward player. And if he pans out, you just got a steal of a trade, honestly. Unfortunately.
Clay ranks him as a damn good prospect for a player to be named later.
Well, he's number 15 and was number 15 in the Mariners farm system. And considering prior to the trade, I don't know that their team wasn't a large majority of farm system players in the bigs anyway. But they made that's another team that made a great move last year for a bunch of guys that were not really players that you knew. I don't know. Everything I'm looking up, I'm a little distracted right now because I looked up MLB market size 2022.
And are you about to call out Bob Castellini?
Nothing says 29. Where are you getting these numbers from, dude? I just don't understand. Is the market based on how many people are watching the game? Because if they're not watching, I can't imagine why.
Does that count all of the pirated streams? Because the only way you can watch the Reds here is on Bally Sports.
I don't know. That dude's an asshole. I don't
know. Like we've said plenty of times, the plan, if they would come out and have like a plan in place and explain it and not seem like, okay, we are going to do this fire sale, rebuild, start over, hit the reset button, and then we saw some fan backlash, so let's go get some guys that have like names people recognize, and so like Tommy Pham, like go get that guy, and Mike Minor, who I think started his career like when I was born. Like
I cracked the code. I found out how they're ranking it. At least this is major pro sports teams ranked by market size from 2021. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And who's doing this ranking?
This is from sportsmediawatch.com.
Okay.
The Reds are the 24th team, actually. And the market is based on homes in the market. Okay.
Yeah.
Cincinnati is the 36th city with a pro team, not just baseball. But in this particular ranking, again, this is 2021. I can't imagine housing market has blown up since a year ago. It's saying that there's only 926,000 homes. And I can't believe that to be true. I don't know what they're basing the market on. Are you basing it on just the city limits?
Probably.
Which is a farce. Base it on the TV market, right? Because those are the people that are traveling to watch the team.
Yeah.
Which is why I find a problem with all this shit. It doesn't make sense.
He ends the interview by saying that they need to rekindle the trust that they have lost with some of the fan base. I think it's all of the fan base.
Yes.
I mean, you've got some guys that are still holding out, but whatever. And then he blames again not having Reds Fest in the Caravan to share their baseball plans. Guess what, guy? You can go to the news, to Twitter. As a matter of fact, Twitter's probably the best spot. Go ahead and just share your plan on Twitter. We don't need the Reds Fest and the Caravan to hear that, So he claims he's read all the emails and texts and social media posts, and that it's been difficult for every member of the organization because, he says in his own words that they have not turned their back on us.
So I've miscounted because I didn't see the columns that had two teams in one city. So I did miscount.
Okay.
In this particular one, we are 29. Actually, we are 29. But again, that's based on 926,000 homes in the market, which is just simply
that doesn't make sense to me. Like I don't know how they would do that, but
it's simply not true. The only team below us is the Brewers.
Okay, and they're like the best team in our division, so and they like spend money and
unless you're talking about the Cardinals, which are ranked actually, it's our whole division apparently that's real shitty, because above the Reds you have the Royals, you have Orioles, you have the Padres, who are spending money like there's no tomorrow, and you have the Pirates, and then the Cardinals.
So just say, like, it doesn't come down to market size. It comes down to who your owner is and how little amount of money that they have. And if you don't have the money to compete and you want to complain and whine and moan about it,
and if you want people in the stands at your stadium buying product, buying merchandise, buying food, buying drink, all that stuff, put a winning product on the field.
The days of attracting, huge amounts of fans to stay in your ballpark because you're giving away a bobblehead are likely going to be gone.
They're over.
I mean, people might still show up and get a bobblehead, but they're not staying. If
you give it away in like the seventh inning stretch, but then you have to hire people to walk down the aisles and pass them out.
Yeah, and hand it out.
Good luck.
Like, you have to get your tickets stamped on the way out of the game after the seventh inning, and then they'll
except they're all digital now, Jeff.
Oh, that's right. Oh, too bad. You get a digital bobblehead.
You get an NFT.
Yeah, you get an NFT. There you go. I don't know. Like,
Ed would be so pissed.
It hurts me. It hurts me to think about the Reds just like falling into a situation like like the Orioles are in, where
we're a storied franchise. It shouldn't be this way.
And if you're really like guess what? If you're that proud of a steward of this franchise, and you don't want to go, put a highly competitive team on the field, steward the franchise to someone who can.
Yes.
That's how I feel about it. And I know we've said it before, like, sell the team, Bob. You suck, Bob.
Because he does.
It sucks as like fans. It just to go into a season where like I've got some like pretty optimistic friends like that are like always out, and I'm usually very optimistic. I'm just not, and I don't know if a lot of that is like looking back and seeing like the Bengals are in the Super Bowl, and had a very legitimate chance to win the Super Bowl. Yeah, you had the Bearcats do what they did, so expectations have started.
Yeah,
expectations start going up.
You don't want to have a shitty baseball team that lasts 162 games.
You had a UC basketball team that didn't necessarily do what we're used to them doing, but there's a plan.
There's hope.
There's a guy there that
they're going into the Big 12. They're going to have to get better. Like they literally have to get better.
Right.
There's no other option.
So I don't know if there's really much more to say about that.
Well, the Reds currently stand at 6-4 in spring training. There is that. We can say that.
God, they're going to make us look stupid, aren't they? At the end of the year. But like I said, if they do it, it's
good.
Not because of
good, but it has nothing to do with ownership.
Right. It's because these kids go out there and play, and maybe that's what we're looking at. I mean, that's what they're saying, like sustainability. They just want teams where Ken Griffey Jr. is not the sixth highest paid player on the team or whatever. So
that's not a way to live. I will say we haven't recapped any of this stuff. As far as league leaders, not league, team leaders right now, Max Schrock leads the team in hits right now in spring training. 8 hits in his 13 at bats. Jonathan India leads the team in runs, 5 runs in 18 at bats. Sorry, I'm waiting on the computer here. Tyler Stevenson, Donovan Solano, new addition.
He got hurt today.
Great. Brandon Drury.
I didn't see like how bad, but they did say that he I think he was running the bases. He walked off the field and did not look pleased when he got to the dugout. So
Brandon Drury and Max Schrock all tied at 2 doubles. Notably, Solano and Drury only had 5 and 8 at bats, whereas the other guys had double digits.
Where's look at look at Ramos Garcia's stats.
I'm getting
Are you
there.
getting there.
Max Schrock and Nick Senzel tied at 1 triple apiece.
Hey, maybe a healthy Nick Senzel is like
The key to this whole
yeah,
thing.
maybe.
Ramos Garcia, the catcher, he started 3 games. He's played in 5, 13 at bats, batting .308, 5 runs, tied with India actually, and also Jake Bowers, by the way, at 5 runs. Also has he has 4 hits in those 13 at bats. 3 of them are dingers. 8 RBI. It's pretty good.
Yeah, they're saying he'll be our
backup catcher. But he leads the team in home runs there with 3. Also in RBI, which makes sense. Are there any stolen bases? Let's see. 3 stolen bases for Jake Fraley, new addition.
Nice. I like that guy. We talked about how he's quite the personality on Twitter.
He did get caught stealing once. Apparently, he's also the only person who's tried to steal it all on the team. No, I take that back. Ronnie Dawson, Miguel Hernandez, and Matt McClain all had 1 steal each. But Fraley was the only one who got caught that one time. So, I don't know. Yuck is what I'm expecting for this season. And anything that exceeds yuck is a win, I suppose.
Yeah.
I will also be the guy that is putting myself through the torture of watching it more often than not.
I mean, I'm gonna watch. Like it
sucks.
I like baseball, so
Same.
And I love the Reds.
Same.
Just and if they make me look stupid, and like I said, then great.
That's the thing though. Like I'm out in Athens, dude. Athens, Ohio, 2.5 hours away. I'm watching on Fox Sports Ohio. I'm in the market. None of this makes sense. 2.5 hours is not crazy to drive to go watch a professional sports game.
You know what else doesn't make sense? And actually, I guess it does make a lot more sense now. Is our boy Joey Votto got on the socials.
It's on social media.
So I don't know how well this is gonna translate audio wise, because it could be very loud for some of you if you have headphones in.
We're working without our self-proclaimed best producer in the city. So
yeah, so this could end up being very, very loud. So this is his like post on Instagram where he kind of welcomed himself to I don't know, social media. See if I get to play.
Hi everyone, it's Joey Votto. For those of you watching this, I just wanted to share that I've decided to join social media. For a while, I've seen it from a distance, but I've been too intimidated to join. I feel like I've been pressed against the wall at a dance or at the prom. And I know I love to dance, but I just couldn't move my feet. I couldn't move to the center of the dance floor. And so I'm glad to join, and I appreciate everyone's support. I'm looking forward to sharing photos and videos and being more social and getting to know more people. I also can't wait to share each and every one of my meals. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Photos and explanations. No, never.
I love Joey.
No, never.
Never.
You have his.
Do that.
You have his other one.
And then, so like that one popped up, and then he like.
First off, I'm calling bullshit. There's no way he hasn't had social media. He has not identified himself. He was probably like Joe V13496211946.
Yeah, it was probably something crazy like that. But then So his Instagram handle is just Joey Votto. And then he's got like 4 posts on there. One is like from the Red social media team where he's sitting in, he throws the shoe up and goes from whatever to. And then he's got one where he's got a full beard, and I kind of wish he'd go to rock the full beard. That'd be awesome.
Yes.
And then we have this from TikTok. This is the one where it could get really, really loud.
And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think that they'd understand when everything's made to be broken. I just want you to know who I am.
Listen, I'm here for all the Joey Votto content. If he's still going to be here, do it up, man. I don't know why you waited until 2022 when you've been here for like 20 years.
Like that TikTok, it's like he's at the dentist's office and he's like, oh, I know. Oh, I'm gonna sing
because he's on Laughing Gas.
Oh, it's fantastic, and then he posts it. So Joey Votto on social media, I'm all for it. Like,
all right,
keep it coming.
Switching gears one last time. Let's talk a little bit about Bearcats. Jeff, on Bearcat Journal, Chad released his 1s and 2s today.
Oh, I haven't been there today.
He did drop his 1s and 2s. Right now, believe it or not, Evan Prater and Ben Bryant look to be in quite the quarterback battle.
I did see he posted the other day. This is Chad that posted that Evan Prater had a significantly better day on one of the days.
Kind of hoping that Chad's still listening to us and maybe hops in at this point, because I'd kind of like to hear you guys talk about a guy from your high school, the highest rated recruit in all of Cincinnati's history, Evan Prater, who is he's showing out, man.
Mr. Football Ohio.
Mr. Football Ohio, that's right.
He just got like he shared a thing on his, I don't know if it was on Twitter. Might have been on Facebook. I saw it. I don't remember. They put up like they did a big thing for him and look who's popping in down here soon enough. As soon as his devices connect. Look, there he is.
What you eating on tonight, Chad?
It's a big boss man. Oh.
Okay. Little queso dip. Okay.
And
all right.
Tostitos
all
chips.
Right. I'm glad you didn't go just standard Tostitos dip, because it's not.
No, this stuff is really good.
There's plenty. Well, it's because it's authentic.
Yeah, this stuff is really good. I bought it one time to do some barbecue nachos, like to be the cheese on the barbecue nachos. And I tried it and I was like, oh, this is just
way better than Tostitos.
Yeah, this is like just good chips and dip. Like,
yeah. No, well, so, my point is Tostitos puts out their salsa con queso and
it's not good.
Not
the chips. I usually go with Mission, the Mission chips.
Mission's
but these were on sale, so I just got the Tostitos.
Hey, I get it, man. So tell Jeff a little bit about what's been going on with Evan Prater, as you've seen. And
he's battling, man. Like he's battling. Like,
isn't that the whole point?
Yeah. No, but you don't know it until you see it, Jeff, right? Like,
I agree.
They brought Ben Bryant in. Ben Bryant has a full season of starting experience. He was the number 2 to Desmond Ridder for a couple years. He knows the system. He knows, like, it you would expect Ben Bryant to have a significant advantage when practice started.
I think we've discussed that on here, that he's got, like you said, he had a full year of starting last year. Not here, but he had a full year of playing college football where he was QB1. He came up here, essentially used this as a place to kind of grow enough to then move on because he wasn't going to unseat Desmond Ridder.
Well, he talked today about he hated leaving. Like, he didn't want to leave.
Yeah, well,
but he knew he had to.
You got to do what's best for you.
Yeah, he had to leave.
So he has to leave. He's now back and finds himself in a competition here, which is only going to bring out the best in both of them.
Right.
And my theory has been from the start, whoever Luke Fickell and his group of coaches decide is number one, that's the guy. Like, you can't just hand the reins over to somebody because of, you're the number one guy we've ever had here as far as recruit and your hometown hero and this and this and that. That's all well and good. But if it doesn't work out that you're QB1, there's an expectation here for this school, and it's not.
It's raising. Like,
it's not
it's
to please.
Elevating.
It's not to please people and stroke egos. It's to win football games.
Right.
And so if that's Ben Bryant, that's Ben Bryant. If it's Evan Prater, it's Evan Prater. If it's some other kid that shows up next year, it's that guy.
Luther?
Here's the thing. This would have been very easy for Evan to just bail or take the easy way out, transfer, not compete, not respond. You know what I mean? Like, this is college sports in 2022. This is what guys do. That's not anything directed at Evan. That is the reality of the situation of college sports in 2022.
There's free agency now.
Right. So all it would have taken was them to sit down with Evan and say, look, Ben's coming back. And Evan to be like, nah, man. I ain't about that.
We've seen that. We see it all the time.
Right. And instead, Evan said, let's go compete. Let's go fight for this job.
Heisman hopeful Spencer Rattler transferred out.
Right.
I mean, there is no limit on this.
It worked out pretty well for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm saying Evan made the decision. Mm-hmm. I'm going to stay here and like, I came here to be the starting quarterback in Cincinnati.
Yeah,
I'm going to fight to be the starting quarterback in Cincinnati. And you know what he's done? He's done exactly that. Exactly that. Because, Jeff, the first week, Ben was really good and Evan was okay. Week 2, it's been advantage Evan. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
Is the kid stepped up. He said, I ain't going anywhere. You're not taking this from me. My boots are in the ground. Let's go. I love it. It's been great.
So here's a question I haven't asked you yet, Chad, as you drop out. He sounded like he was holding one back, though.
Yeah, I had to get one out.
I get it. Is that actually the biggest battle right now at the one spot? Or is there what would the next battle do you think right now? Even though obviously we won't know until
running back,
until everyone's on the field when they're not nursing injuries and everything. But I guess what I'm getting at is, I know we talk often about different things, but I've not actually asked you, like, what's the next closest battle?
Running back, I think, is right there. The problem with that being
Ryan,
the guy that would probably be the number one, Ryan Montgomery, is limited.
But I think that's also been a reason why that battle has become what it's become.
Sure, but it's hard to assess what that battle has become without the guy that's likely the number one guy involved in the battle.
Well, but now Miles is involved in the battle where maybe he wouldn't have been.
He would have been. He would have been. Like Miles Montgomery, I've said this many times on the Nightcap. I've said it on the board. I've said it on the BBP and the BCJ.
He impressed me in the one practice I've been to. I thought he was the most impressive back that day.
He is a complete back. Like, he's good between the tackles. He's good outside. He's good catching the ball. He's pretty good, like at least serviceable in pass protection. Like,
how realistic is Steph in that battle, though?
He's got some development. Like, he looks good running against the threes, but he's running against the threes because he's a freshman, and that's what freshmen do. Freshmen run against the threes. Like, the ability is there for him to be good, but there's still a lot of catching up to do. He has to do the work that Miles Montgomery did last year.
Okay, that makes sense.
As a redshirt freshman. And now Miles has put himself in a position to compete. Like, I did the eyebrows raised today. I looked, and it was the first team was out there, and there was Miles Montgomery in the backfield. And sometimes you gotta you gotta check yourself. And usually to check myself, okay,
before you wreck yourself.
Sometimes, yes. I look when I'm trying to figure out, like, are we really looking at ones, like the ones? Who's at left tackle, right?
Yeah.
Like, James Tunstall is at left tackle with the ones pretty much every rep. So if I'm looking to see who's the ones, is James Tunstall on the field? If James Tunstall is on the field, I know that's the ones. And there was a couple series where Miles Montgomery was with the ones today, and I think they want to get a look. Like, we think this kid is good enough to run with our ones. We might as well use spring practice number 8, right? Like, let's get him a couple touches with the ones and see what it looks like.
Is there a surprise battle anywhere that you've seen that's been like, oh, I didn't expect that to like start already?
Leroy Bowers.
Well, Leroy Bowers, in that they did something completely that none of us expected. Right? With Leroy Bowers, they took a linebacker and moved him to nickel cornerback. Right? Like, what? That's not how that, like, when you're moving guys around, linebacker to nickel cornerback is not that's not the progression. That's not how moving guys around works, right?
Yeah, but right now is the time to like mess with that kind of stuff.
Play with your toys
and say. And I know you mentioned it last week.
The thought process being, we have Ty Van Fossen and Deshaun Pace at that sniper, dollar, whatever you want to call it, linebacker spot. We have to get Leroy Bowers on the field. We're not going to get him on the field there. So where's the best spot to get him on the field? And the way football keeps changing, you need more guys that can cover and run and play in space, because offenses are going like this instead of like this. And it was like, let's get a look.
Is there a player of UC's past that you can compare Leroy Bowers to? Hitting you with the hard-hitting questions late at night.
I don't.
Is he all his own, just brand new?
So I guess I need to see what it looks like in real time, right? Like, in a game.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Could Jarrell have done what they're asking Leroy to do? Probably.
Is he bigger, though?
Leroy's a little bigger, not a ton. Leroy's not.
He's not tall. Not taller than Jarrell.
He's taller than Jarrell, but he's
listed 6'2", 200.
Well, I was going to say
6'1", 212 is what he's in the official
guide.
So he's a couple inches taller than Jarrell, but I'm talking like style of play.
Jarrell's like what, 5'8", 5'10"?
Somewhere in there.
We'll
split the difference and call him 5'9".
I was going to say I've met Jarrell. I'm taller than Jarrell.
Right. We'll split the difference and say 5'9".
Okay.
So Leroy's bigger, but I'm talking like in terms of style of play. Like, I think if you ask Jarrell to do what they're asking Leroy to do, he probably could have done it. Remember, Jarrell was a safety in high school. Like
he was quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Man.
I was just curious. I didn't mean to put you in a tough spot.
No. It's a great question. Like when you get a question, you have to like cycle through names of the past to think about. That's a tough one. I think, you know who I think could have done what they're asking Bowers to do right now? I think Brian Cook could have done it. Because what people forget is Brian Cook was a corner at Howard.
He's also hard enough to hit like a linebacker. So
right. And he's got the shot. Like, I think he could have, if you'd have wanted him to be like here's the other thing. James Wiggins was basically their nickel corner.
Well, as soon as you said Cook, I was like, what about Wiggs?
Wiggs,
that was my next thought process.
The year before he blew out his ACL, he was essentially their nickel corner. And was one of the best like nickel defensive backs in the country in the process. So I guess that's probably the right answer, Aaron, would be Wiggs, like for what they're trying to ask him to do. But those are two different body types, right?
Yeah.
Like
just wanted to be able to try and maybe put it into perspective a little bit different than we have as we're describing, honestly, what sounds like kind of a new position for this defense.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like if you're going to stay in the 3-3-5, you've got 3 defensive linemen, you've got 2 traditional linebackers, you've got a linebacker that's a coverage hybrid safety type. If you had another one of those onto the field, you're essentially running a 3-4.
I mean, it gives them the versatility to run either a 3-4 or the 3-3-5, or it gives them, I mean, they can still go the 3-2-6. I mean, there's a lot of different combinations you can run with now. With
with Jaheim
running a 4-3,
a 4-2-5, a 4-3.
Yeah.
Like that's been for me. We've talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
That's been for me the most fun part of the spring is watching them tinker.
That's 5 different looks for this defense. Potentially.
With base personnel.
Yes. And that's huge.
Where does a guy like Ivan slide in?
So Ivan so far has been the backup to Jaheim.
Okay.
And then when they use Jaheim as a rush edge, then Ivan comes in and plays that linebacker spot. So then you're essentially in a 4-3.
Jeff, that was one of my just real quick, Jeff, that was one of my observations of Jaheim at the practice I was at. Is Jaheim's thicker? He is definitely thicker than what he was even in January. He has filled out his body.
He looks good. He looks good for sure. So that's been the fascinating part on defense is like, Luke is one of those guys, and he did this in his time at Ohio State, and it's continued here at UC. He likes to innovate. He likes to see what he can do with different chess pieces, what he can do that nobody else is doing, or that gives him, a schematic advantage.
If you can run 5 different defenses with your base, that's huge.
Right.
Huge.
You just get out there and change it up and say, if a team has to look at your film and try to decipher what's going to happen based on the players that are out there, and you line those players up in 3-4 different
and do something different, right?
And do something different every time. The preparation that goes into that is, astronomical, and puts more of the pressure on them. And I like that.
Of course, because teams spend all week trying to figure out what the hell are they going to do.
Right. And a lot of that is based on a lot of that traditionally, and maybe I'm wrong, is based on the personnel that you run out on the field. And if you're running these guys out and they're starting
same look on a 3-4 or a 4-3 or a nickel, or
they start in one look, and maybe midway through your snap count, you look up and guys are in different spots, and you're like, timeout. Like, wait a minute. They're cheating.
So
never mind.
So here's what I haven't talked about yet. And this is something I'll probably spend a lot more time in the off season when we're like.
This is my favorite thing about this podcast, though, is you get a little loosey because it's 11 o'clock when you usually come on. And I think that's what people are missing about this podcast is the fact that we get a little looser version of Chad.
Well, when we do ours, it's like very like I'm structured. Like we have this is your podcast.
I'm aware.
I don't have anything to do with the planning or. I'm not in the production meeting prior to this show. Like we have the detailed production meetings for all of the Bearcat Journal podcasts.
My whole point is this is, I think, the unscripted stuff where you don't know what's coming, and we get
a little more out of
Chad than we normally are accustomed to.
What was it? You screwed me up. You screwed me up. I forget what I was.
Hang on,
Chad.
I was going. You buffering.
I think it's just Aaron that's buffering.
Yeah, that's not me.
Aaron's frozen with a smile.
Aaron's frozen. Hold on, Chad, you're buffering. Get out of here.
He's frozen with a smile on his face.
I think we remember the Navy game where we saw the 4-4 and the UCF game where they unveiled the 3-3-5. And we spent so much of that time praising Marcus Freeman. Rightfully so. He was the defensive coordinator. But now don't you have to at least think a little bit? How much of that was just as much Luke?
Well, I think
where they sat down and they were like, okay, let's get a little creative here. Let's put our own spin on things. Let's be a little different to solve the equation.
And I think some of that started a lot of Bearcats fans, I think, started to see a lot of that just this year, where there was a lot of, I think, talk that people thought the defense was going to have, maybe a little bit of a fall off because Freeman was gone. And
yeah, but we don't know that answer yet, Jeff.
Well, I get that.
But those were that was the same. The players were the same.
Right? But I think people were still afraid that without this, defensive, and not to take anything away from Marcus Freeman, because I think he's a fantastic coach and he's probably going to do great there.
Even better human.
I think people thought maybe that a lot of maybe some of the strings that were being pulled in the middle of the game, or some of the that we were going to lose some of that without him. And I don't think that there was, I think Luke does have maybe a little bit extra hands on the strings, and and maybe that was.
What
just
I'm
this
saying
year
is, I think he had hands on the strings more than people realized, even when Marcus was here.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Or at least gave him the freedom to think that far outside the box on not having a preconceived notion of this is the only way we can be successful.
Well,
because that's what Marcus was great at, right? Is let's find a way, however we need to be successful today in this game against this opponent, let's figure it out.
Let's take that even deeper, though. I mean, we found out just a couple months ago, I guess, we found out that Denbrock wasn't even necessarily calling the offense 100%. We found out that it was also
Denbrock was still in charge of the offense. It might have been Gino on game day calling the plays, but you can only call the plays that are on the sheet, right?
Well, I guess my point is I think there's maybe more hands in the pot, whether it be offense or defense, than maybe we realized all along.
Yeah.
As you move up the trust tree, I think that's fair. I think, Luke has shown he's a guy that as the more trust he puts in you, the more he believes in you, the more responsibility you're going to have.
It's just
the trust tree, Jeff, is a joke from back during the Michigan State courtship of Luke Fickell. There was a meeting called at Luke's house between what we joked was the trust tree. when final decisions were being made.
Isn't that also out of like Old School, the movie where they're talking to therapists?
No, wasn't it? It might have been Old School. Wasn't it also like Meet the Fockers or one of the Fockers?
Yeah. It was.
Yeah.
Well, that was the Circle of Trust.
The Circle of Trust.
Don't get it
right.
twisted.
Old School was the trust tree. Similar concept.
Yes.
It's different.
Same shit.
But same.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, it's one of those things that like you look at it and it's probably better to have things in that fashion where, like one guy isn't responsible necessarily for, the bulk of it. And if you lose that guy,
the whole house of cards doesn't come crumbling down.
Right. Because you have a guy who has a lot of success, and a lot of your success is based off of this one dude. And because of that, he gets pulled away to another job somewhere else, and you're still able to, put somebody else there. They kind of understand the way things are. They move up your trust tree, and you give them a little bit more, and they understand like, hey, and it also comes down to the players that you've got. Like they've recruited players that are not only good, but they're smart, and they're able to kind of on the fly implement a totally new look.
And they're versatile, right?
Yes,
like you have guys who can do different things. You're not strictly reliant on this guy only does this or this guy only does that. It's, we've got 2 or 3 guys that give us the ability to do something different. Like, they've been using Sammy Anderson in the nickel, and they've been using Leroy Bowers in the nickel. Well, guess what? Your defense is completely different when you use one or compared to the other. Sammy's obviously going to be a playmaker, a ball hawk in coverage that can really make plays. Where Bowers is going to be like fly around, make stops in the run game, be a more physical presence than a coverage type presence. So I guess what's been really interesting is let's say you've got Sammy on the field playing nickel, or you've got Bowers on the field playing nickel on first and second down. And then you bring Sammy in coverage, and then you move Jaheim to rush end from linebacker, right? And all of a sudden, you changed one guy, but you changed the entire basis of your defense that an offensive coordinator has to figure out what the hell are they doing right now. They only changed one guy, but they went from this scheme to this completely different scheme. And I think that's in modern defense, keeping offenses, because offenses now are about rhythm, right? It used to be offense about power, about, running it down your throat or punking you, so to speak. Now it's about rhythm, right? Get the quarterback back, get him set, make a quick throw, make a quick read. And if he has a tough time figuring out what the hell is happening in front of him, you stand a better chance of stopping him.
And you take it one further, and you don't change any personnel on the field,
right?
And you all of a sudden, like I said, you start as they come to the line, your guys are in one scheme, and as the quarterback starts making a couple calls, the defense totally swaps to a whole new look, and he looks up, and now he's got to run through a few more calls. Like you said, it totally throws off the rhythm of an offense and puts you in the driver's seat.
Well, and it throws off the rhythm of a quarterback, right? Maybe a veteran quarterback that's got 3 years experience can handle something like that. But if you're playing a team with a little bit of a younger quarterback and you just want to mess with him to get into his head, all of a sudden, you're the thing I would say that's different, Jeff. I'm talking about when you're going from first and second down to then you go into third down where you're playing pass coverage. If you leave Leroy Bowers out there, somebody's going to put their slot receiver in a position to make a play on a guy that's not necessarily
right
100% designed to cover that. But
yeah,
if you can take one or two guys off the field and all of a sudden you're in a completely different defense and you've got a quarterback that doesn't have experience dealing with that, oh boy, you can mess with them. You can mess with them big time.
Well, you say that, but if you switch to a zone read as opposed to a man-to-man read, all of a sudden everything's changed, So it doesn't necessarily matter that you got the personnel in. It just matters.
Yeah, but I don't think this is a team that's built to play a shit ton of man yet. I think you're going to see a lot more zone next year than people are.
Which would make sense, especially if you're switching schemes from drive to drive or whatever.
You're taking away maybe one of the most accomplished lockdown press man corners.
Yeah, there's not
in the history of college football. Period. Not in the history of Cincinnati football. In the history of college football, there's been very few press man corners that were able to do what Sauce did.
Regardless, I think we're about to see some shit that we've never seen before out of Cincinnati defense, which should be.
Well, the thing is,
super exciting.
They know Sauce ain't over there anymore.
I know Chad's brought it up. Like, you're not gonna have a team that just doesn't look to that side of the field. Now, maybe that throws off a lot of teams in the AAC because now they're gonna have to tell their quarterback, like, hey, you can use.
You're allowed to look left.
You can
looking left is okay.
You use the whole field now. There's Jeff, not a guy over there that's going to do that.
Your boy Arquan's been on the outside though, Jeff.
He has.
You know what? I said it last year on several occasions. I thought he didn't get, and I mean, obviously you're not going to necessarily get the recognition.
What were you going to do? Take Sauce off the field?
Exactly. No, I'm just saying, like, they're
right.
But hey, if that's the guy that we have to move over there, I'm all right with it.
I think we're at 5 practices in a row. He's taken pretty much every snap at first team boundary corner, which is replacing Sauce.
I can't remember if Jeff was higher on Arquan or Javon. I think you were high on both of them, but I don't remember which one you were higher on. Oh, that's what I thought. So he's been the one that's been sliding to the outside. So
yeah,
out of the slot.
And he was never a slot corner.
No, he moved there because he needed to.
Because it's the only way he was going to play.
Right.
Well, I mean, it is what it is.
That's
a good problem. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah. He's not a 5'10", 180-pound corner, which is what a slot, a nickel corner usually is a smaller guy. Like Mike Hilton for the Bengals.
Correct.
A little bit of a smaller guy, like shifty, twitchy. Arquan moved into that spot because, like, he wasn't going to play if he didn't move to the nickel. So now we're getting to see him outside, and you're not seeing a whole lot of stuff completed his way.
Chad, one last question before we get out of here for the night. But JQ, I know you know he's probably my favorite defensive player on this team, actually. Just with the relationship I was able to build with him when he was going through the recruitment process and all of that.
Sure.
Were there any sightings? I know you put out your 1s and 2s, and he's not on the 2s yet. But were there any sightings today with him with the 2s?
I didn't see him today with the 2s, but I've seen him getting some reps here and there with the 2s. He had a pick of Ben Bryant
a couple days
Saturday.
Ago. Yeah.
With the 2s. It was Saturday or last Thursday, one of the two.
It was Thursday because I got to talk to you that night, and I know you talked with Nick on Saturday. So
yeah. So he's getting a little bit of a look. This is kind of similar to Sauce, where Sauce, well, the difference being Sauce didn't enroll early. But we saw it at Higher Ground. There were some times where Sauce was starting to get a little like run with the 2s. Because generally freshmen are running with the 3s. You're a freshman. Like you're new.
Well, and Sauce didn't really come on until several games into his
halfway through the season.
Right.
Yeah.
The UCF game was his coming out party.
Which was in October. Like, I mean, it was game
Not
5,
early. Right?
Game
Not early.
5, game 6, right?
Not against your Miami.
Right. JQ's doing well. Here's the other thing to remember. We've talked about this. Sauce came in at like 152 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah.
JQ's he's 6'3", 198 pounds now.
I don't even know that that's accurate because when was the last time we talked to Brady?
It's been a week and a half,
and he didn't give us weight.
Right?
He didn't give us weight updates, so who knows?
But he's a solidly filled out kid already. He's not like there was a lot of times with Sauce, like they joke around about the cartoon character he looks like from The Incredibles. Yeah. That's all arms and legs. When Sauce was young, like he looked like one of the car things.
What's the kid from Coleraine?
Ken Willis.
Ken Willis. He's skinny. I mean, he's smaller, obviously.
He's not. Look, man.
He's like
you weren't around.
No,
you have no idea.
He's like 5'11",
but he's still like 175, 180.
Is he that much?
166. That was close. That wasn't very close. But he's 5'11". Sauce was literally 6'2.5", 155 pounds. He looked like he was gonna break.
That's wild.
When he got here, like he legit looked like he was gonna break. But you could, and I'll give him his credit. The entire time, Brandon Sosna, who's now the associate AD at USC, was at higher ground like the third day of camp, and he saw Sauce and he said, "That's an NFL cornerback." And we were like, if somebody breathes on him wrong, he's gonna break. Like
fantastic.
And sure enough, man. So JQ has some physical qualities that are really exciting.
He'll be on the field sooner than later. We all know that.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like, who does he pass, right? Like, people know I'm a big Todd Bumpus guy because
you were a big Sammy Anderson guy.
Yeah, I was more Bumpus than Justin, and I have had a back and forth on Bumpus and Sammy.
Last year, I think early on, I think you were a bigger Sammy Anderson guy than you were a Bumpus.
That's because I always got their numbers confused.
Didn't help when they had the same number.
Right. Sammy is technically incredibly sound as like an outside field corner.
But not flashy?
Sammy is much more of the playmaker. Okay. Sammy's the guy that's going to get you interceptions, is like a ball hawk. Bumpus is the guy that's going to be in the right spot.
That would be sound to me as far as definitions go.
Yeah.
Well,
so
you said it backwards then, because you led off with Sammy being the more sound guy.
No, Bumpus is the more sound guy.
Okay.
Sammy is more of the playmaker. Like if we're like you're charting, like Sammy's got more interceptions and makes more plays on the ball. Bumpus is the guy that never really gets beat, right?
But Sammy's going to give up the big play every now and
then. Right. Yeah. So he's got a couple guys he's going to have to pass. That really wasn't the case for Sauce at the time.
Fair. Yeah.
Because Cam Jeffries was in one corner spot, Kobe was in the other. That was when Kobe was getting his he was the boundary guy. And as we learned, Kobe was much more of a field corner than he was a boundary corner. So I don't know where that opening is right away.
As we talk about often, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I just don't know where that opening is right away.
Yeah.
For JQ. Like, is JQ really going to jump Arquan and force Arquan to the field? Maybe. I'm not ruling that out, but I'm saying
when you're looking at the cornerback huddle, he is a helmet taller than everyone.
So the crazy thing people forget about Sauce, the reason that Sauce got his chance was Freeman and Fickle decided that what UCF used to do was they ran so many go routes, right?
They're mossing
what they were trying to do was physically drain your corners. And then the guy would run off. They would bring a new wide receiver in. They'd run go routes. And Cincinnati had decided going into that specific game in 2018, we're going to rotate our corners so that they're not constantly.
Well, that was back.
Like, we don't have the same guy constantly chasing UCF. And they were smaller. They were all like 5'10", 5'11".
Not the
track
one,
guys.
Not the one dude who ended up with the Saints.
Okay, so they had one guy that wasn't like that.
Well, I would assume that's who he was on.
No. Well,
No?
But you're missing the point.
Okay.
As usual. You like to stray from the point.
Soccer.
They wanted to wear down because most teams just play their corners, right? UCF's going to rotate wide receivers, and they're going to run vertically to wear your guys down so that eventually, as towards the end of the game, they're getting steps on you with their fresh legs against your guys with tired legs. And UC said, okay, well, if you run a vertical on our sideline, that guy's just going to come off the field, and we're going to insert a new corner in that spot so that the next time you run a vertical, that guy's got fresh legs. That's really how Sauce got on the field, was that wrinkle of, okay, this is what you like to do. This is how we're going to combat it. And then he gets the pick six. And then once he got the pick six, the narrative on Sauce started to change a little. Then you go to SMU, he gets another one, and now you can't take him off the field. Is there going to be that moment for JQ, right? Like, is he going to have
a time to get on the field? Yep.
That time to get on the field and make his
presence known.
Yeah.
2018. Is this the year we're talking about?
Yeah.
2018. Traquan Smith, 6'2". That was the guy that I was talking about that ended up.
Okay, they had one big receiver.
I'm just
Congratulations.
saying. I'm just saying that was the guy that he's not 5'9".
Okay. Now do the rest of their receiver group.
I looked up the guy I was making the point on. It's fine. He's playing for the Saints now. It's fine.
Yeah. Congratulations.
My favorite part is it doesn't matter if they were like 6'5" or 5'5". Chad was just trying to make a point that they rotated them out.
Aaron finds one little thing that he thinks, their receivers weren't all small. They had one guy that was 6'2". Congratulations, Aaron.
And that was another episode of Pardon the Punctuation. As always, we thank Chad for making time for us. Again, thank you to Dave Simone for joining us earlier tonight. You can catch Chad and Dave every Thursday night, Wednesday night, depending on it, whatever the mood is. I have no idea what it's going to be this week. But that is the BCJ pod that they both appear on. Thanks to Jeff Howell. No thanks to Ed. He went on vacation. And again, that was another episode of Pardon the Punctuation. Ed, you got homework to do between that 45 and 50-minute mark. Again, find Dave's where he projects everybody so we can go back and grade him on that and make Jeff has a whole game based upon that. So we're gonna make Dave drunk. All in all, another great episode. Thanks to everybody who contributed, and we will see you next Tuesday. I am Aaron Smith for Pardon the Punctuation. We are out of here.
What?